Hey there, this is Grace, and we're going to take a look at some basic editing guidelines for allthingsautobox.com. Now, WordPress itself is very user-friendly. It lends itself to folks that are learning how to lay out a web page. But I want to start by saying that there's a lot going on that works together in this particular website. We have the foundation of WordPress, but then we have also the Elementor page builder. We have WooCommerce for the shop working in play here. And we also have a number of accessibility features for folks that don't easily interact with a keyboard or might have limited vision, limited hearing. So there are some things in play deeper into what it looks like. So we want to start with some best practices on creating templates, creating draft pages and posts so that when a page editing process is finalized, it can be pushed live. And meanwhile, customers can surf the page and the pages without having any kind of interruption. All right, so now you're already familiar with getting into the back end. So let's go ahead and get to that. We're going to open up the home page. And one of the first things I want to point out is these tags, and I may have mentioned it before. The pages and posts that are tagged with Elementor after the title is because they were built with the Elementor page builder. Pages that don't have it can be directly edited in the Gutenberg, or what is the newest editing space for WordPress, which is very block and module focused. Now let's take a look at what I mean by that. When I click on edit instead of edit with Elementor on a page that's been built with Elementor, we're going to see, instead of the content of the page, we're going to see the Gutenberg building area. Now, when a page has been designed with Elementor, you want to avoid changing anything outside of Elementor. Now, the exception to that rule is the featured image. The featured image, which you can replace and exchange here, is the image that it's not shown on the front of the website. It actually is only shown when you share the web address. So let's say we're sharing allthingsautobox.com in a post on Facebook. This is the image that's going to show in the preview area of that link. So when we put a featured image here, although it still needs to be lightweight, and sized appropriately, it should adhere to the dimensions of social networks rather than the common dimensions of images here on the website. Okay, so you can feel free to change that featured image. Texts and logos in that image will show up differently on different networks. So you just want to keep your primary target social network in mind when you create an image for that area. All right, now, this is the Gutenberg editing area, so we don't want to touch it too much. If you've started to get to know your SEO approach, things like your keyword and your descriptions for search engines, that can be put in here in Yoast SEO. You can edit your snippet, and as you can see, we haven't actually put in a target description for Google in this area, and it really should be done probably as soon as possible. I didn't realize we didn't have that there yet, but that could be edited right in here, and it is a limited space. Kind of think of it like a Twitter post. Essentially, you want to keep it under, I think it's something like 250 characters, but including your keywords to target there. But it has to be human readable as well, so it should be an easily read description. It's what's going to show up when somebody Google searches and AutoBox comes up. That's going to be the description under the link, the main title link. All right, so that can be edited here. The slug should not be edited. That's a permanent address, so you don't want to edit the slug at all, just the snippet. You can edit the title, the SEO title, if you like. You can change things around here as far as what order they show up in. You can add a slogan in that title area. That's not a problem at all. Okay, all right, so let me close this area and let's go back to the pages. And the difference is what we'll see here. When we edit with Elementor, it'll take us right into the Elementor editor. Now, in the view of Gutenberg, you could just as easily click the blue button in the middle that says Edit with Elementor. Clicking it from the Pages list just saves you a step, basically. Okay, so now we're seeing a little bit more of the behind the scenes here. And one of the things that probably jumps out right away is that, okay, what is this little anchor thing? Because we don't see it on the front of the website. We can kind of get the gist that the empty space widgets are doing their job to keep the spacing. But here above the AutoBox, we're not seeing anything. So what in the heck is that, right? Okay, so let's go back in there, edit with Elementor. That is one of the deeper layers that I'm talking about with regard to the accessibility, as well as just basic usability from the navigation. There are blind anchors in various areas of the site that communicate with the navigation and links or buttons on various pages. So this anchor here allows people to land on this area from a button link instead of a visible link. And that would make a whole lot more sense. We can get into that a little bit further down the road. Okay, so there's blind anchors like that when you see them, you kind of want to leave them exactly where they are. You can work and design around them, but you don't want to move them or remove them entirely. Okay, this particular one, Meet the, is actually just reference to the About Us kind of description on the homepage. So it'll always need to be paired with your segment of About Us or whatever the intro information is. But too much too soon. We'll move on. You've had a chance to play with the columns and probably the imagery and that sort of thing to be able to find your way around. And that's fantastic. You're probably already well familiar with these grabbing tabs and the fact that clicking a plus sign or whatever, it, adds a row and adds columns depending on where you're clicking it, that sort of thing. Okay, but before any of that could ever or should ever get done, we want to make sure we're working in a draft mode. So how the heck do we do that, right? Let's go to the pages. And in order to get out of this, you probably already know this, we're going to exit to the dashboard. Cool. Okay, so we want to make edits to the home page today. And so we're going to take that home page and we're going to clone it. And I'm not sure if you guys have tried this before, but we're going to start from our clone so that we can see our changes and save our changes without it affecting the customers that might be surfing the site. Okay, so now I have my home draft, which is an exact copy of our front page. So I'm going to open that as my preview. Cool. And having opened that for editing in Elementor, we're going to look at it from here for our actual changes. Okay, so we have our navigator to help us in easily moving whole chunks around if we want. And then we have the ability to save and reuse templates. All right, so let's do that first. Let's say we like this chunk, but we know we're going to edit it dramatically. So we want to have it kind of as a fallback to come back to if we need to. So when we grab onto that tab and I right click, we can say save as a template. So this chunk, that 3-column icons and headings, set up the design of the color, the design of the text sizing, all of that is going to be held in this little section template. So let's call it 3-column icon headings so that we kind of know what we're looking for in our section library. We're going to say save, and easy as that, it's going to add to the collection that we already have. Now there's a bunch of chunks that I've already saved in the development of the site itself anyhow. So you'll see it show up at the bottom here, and when you click preview, you can see that it's just that little chunk there, that 3-column with your icon headers and your spacing. Now the spacing did get a little weird right here, and I believe that that's just because we're in preview mode. So that's not a problem. But there you go. So now we have a backup plan for something that we're editing. I can get out of there. And we can make as many of these templates as we feel we need. That's totally okay. You can actually make a template of the entire page as well. So if you're wanting to make changes throughout the page, you can use the little caret here and say save as template, and this is going to save the entire page layout. So this is going to be, let's say, February homepage complete. Save, and you'll find that there's a couple of templates for full page already created as well. So when we scroll down there, we're going to say preview. Perfect. It keeps the slider where it needs to be, or I should say the intro animation where it needs to be. All the animation settings, all the spacing, all that wonderful jazz is all where it should be in that page. Cool. Okay, so once we have that saved as a template, how do we insert it where we need it, right? Okay, so let's do that. Let's say further down here, we decided we want that 3-column to live somewhere in here instead of up there. So we can drag it in our navigator. Let's say, let's travel to where it might be. Okay, so it's this section here, and I'm going to just rename this to 3 columns with icon headings. That way it's easier to find next time. I'm going to close it up, and I'm just going to move it underneath testimonials. Beautiful. Okay, so you might have played with that a little bit before. I'm not sure, but let's say I moved it down there, and just for sake of displaying how to, in the little blue tab, we're going to say use the plus sign, and we're going to say we want to grab it from our templates, which is that folder, and we're going to go into my templates and find that section with the 3-column headings, and we're going to go ahead and click on insert. You sure you want to do this? Yes, I'm sure. Beautiful. And I'm more than welcome to fool around and really dramatically change things in here, because we're still in draft mode. We're still in the secondary cloned homepage rather than the live space. So we can save this as much as we want. And I'm just gonna, yeah, we can say update and then refresh and take a look at our preview. All right, our preview is behaving a little funky. It's got a boxed limitation on it instead of full page, so I'll take a look at that. But there we go. Here's the section that we moved further down, and the section that we moved in from template is showing there. Fabulous. So I'm going to go back to here and just check in the overall full width stretched. Okay, so everything is looking like it should. Our preview is behaving a little funky, but I'm not concerned about that. We hadn't made any alterations on the width or anything like that, so I think the preview is just behaving funny. Okay, cool. So we know now how to create a template and how to insert it back where we want it. Now, the same thing applies if you go to the live page. Now, let's say you made some edits, they're super fly, you're ready to put it on the live site. Save the sections as templates and then go to the live page. Edit with Elementor. Give it a second to load. And then the sections or the template pieces that you've saved, you insert them where you need them on the live page. Now that you're a lot more confident in having tested and seen what it's going to look like, you know that it's where you want things and it's worded accurately and all that jazz, and you can insert the template spots and update, push it to live without harming anything on the front end. I am going to interrupt that recording and actually add in this little chunk to it because I realized that I hadn't talked about history in any of these edits either. So let's go ahead back into that cloned homepage. It's the one that doesn't have front page marked on it. This is our kind of workspace. So I'm going to go ahead back into Edit with Elementor. All right, and let's say I get really nuts here and I say, okay, I'm going to delete this And I kind of want to move this one over here underneath the icon. And this icon I want to change to be something silly or hospital. There we go. Okay. Whoops, that's not what I want, right? Okay, so I don't know if you've noticed already, but you have a history down here that is going to continue to track your movements. Now, it doesn't track back terribly far, so it's not like in Illustrator where you have 800 different step back points. You only have, I think, 30. And to use them, you just click backward through the stack. Now, the top one is the most recent edit, and the bottom one is when you began. So you can step back to that one, and it'll go back to that first edit. We'll go into the revisions area and you can see exactly who made what edits. So in theory, and I haven't played too much with this, in theory you can leave this page and come back tomorrow and actually revert back to something you did quite some time ago. So this one says 32 minutes ago. And there you have it. It went all the way back to what we had discussed just a few moments ago in this tutorial. Let's give it a moment to load. There we go. And it's back to beautiful the way it's meant to be. All right. So I just wanted to make sure I added that into this recording, and I will take you back to your normal programming. Best practice, work in draft mode. Make full clones of pages you want to edit dramatically. That way you have a backup and a second resort. Thirdly, feel free to ask for a backup once you've made some edits that, let's say you made some successful edits or wording changes that were pretty basic sometime this morning, feel free to drop a line to Seth or myself to have us do a full backup at that point. At the point where you're just beginning another series of dramatic edits. That way, when you're rolling back if needed, if something drastically needs to be rolled back, it only rolls back to your last successful set of changes. Okay, that way you're not losing like what happened, a whole day's worth of work in editing. It takes about 20 minutes to do a full backup of the site. So please don't hesitate to just drop us a line or drop me a text and say, hey, right now is a great moment for a full backup because we're at a safe point, and I will go ahead and do that. I'll just give you a quick okay in return that it's done, and then you can keep editing from there. You can do however many backups you want during the day, any day, and your site is backed up completely every night. So I think it's something like 12:30 in the morning. It gets a full backup. So if a backup hasn't been done after successful updates, you'll have to kind of be aware that the next rollback stage will be midnight the night before. So just keep that in mind as an option. All right, so I will see you again with a tutorial on prepping imagery. And then we'll jump into creating whole new products. All right, see you again. Bye.